Okay. If you can take your seats, please. So we can start. We have all our guests here. Good afternoon, ladies and gentlemen, distinguished guests, Prime Minister, Ministers, Vice President. We are very happy to have NF back in Bratislava in such a prestigious premises. I think this hosting of NF continues to improve from year to year, from session to session, and the number of participants continues to increase and be more diversified. We will start today with a political session, and we will continue tomorrow with two sessions focusing on knowledge management and new technologies on small modular reactors. I'm very happy to welcome Prime Minister Pellegrini from the Slovak Republic as the host. Unfortunately, the Prime Minister will not be able to stay until the very end of the session, so we will start and we will have to excuse himself at some stage during the opening session. Then we will have the Minister of Energy from Slovakia who will stay with us, and so is the Minister Hüner from Czech Republic, and the member of the European Parliament, Mr. Kohlicek, who will be here, and of course Vice President Šefčovič. So without further delays, I would like to give the word to Prime Minister for the opening speech. Prime Minister.
Dear Deputy Chairman of the European Commission, dear ladies and gentlemen, dear guests, it is a great pleasure for me to be able to welcome you here at the 13th European Nuclear Forum. And I'm very pleased that Slovak Republic once again is the host of this event, whose importance is confirmed by the number of participants and our extremely valuable guests. As is a tradition, we would like to talk about the current issues in nuclear energy, and especially the European nuclear energy or European energy system. It is the ambition of the European Union to become a global leader in fighting climate change, and we need to apply a responsible and balanced approach to low-emission sources of energy, while at the same time securing energy for our citizens and businesses to maintain competitiveness of the EU in the global economy. We have goals in our European energy strategies figured out for 2020, 30 and 2050, and achieving them will require a lot of effort. So the Energy Union, it has several pillars: energy security, competitiveness, and sustainability. And in this respect, I would like to focus on the contribution of nuclear energy. Nuclear energy is not only a safe energy source, but it is a verified technology which can contribute to stable production of electricity. For the Slovak Republic and several other countries of the EU, it would be almost impossible to achieve those European goals without using the potential of the nuclear energy, because here in Slovakia, nuclear energy has a tradition of more than 60 years and is producing about 55%. Have undergone a system that any that is up to par. The nuclear energy regulator in Slovakia evaluates the safety of units in Mochovce and Bohunice, and we can conclude that at the moment both power plants are very safe. To reiterate, we produce 55% of our electricity from nuclear sources, and including domestic renewable resources, Slovakia is producing 80% of all its electricity from carbon-free, clean sources. And that is why we included the agenda of nuclear energy which means harmonization of common procedures and increasing the importance of nuclear energy sources in the context of new European policies in the region of Central and Eastern Europe is one of the central topics of the upcoming Slovak presidency of the V4 group of countries. And we would welcome if the European Commission and its documents in the area of energy and climate accepted the positive contribution of the nuclear industry or nuclear generation to achieving the goals which you have specified, that it was positive. We just need to mention that the 127 operated nuclear reactors in the EU is producing about 27% of electricity and employs about 800,000 people, and the turnover is about 70 billion euros per year. So it is clear that nuclear energy is very important, and this sector should be mentioned in all future documents of the European Commission. And our increased interest is also attracted to the new document of the EEC, which is the communication on the future of the European energy and climate policy, which should include topics related to the Euratom agreement. And from our point of view, the communication should find a balance between the ambition of reducing the emission of greenhouse gases until 2030, which is related to the Paris Agreement and the climate energy package, and using a larger scope for a low carbon economy. But I do not understand why it would be necessary to reopen the Euratom agreement. We believe that countries should be free to specify their own energy mix, and in the area of transparency, at the moment there is a high level, and matters of cross-border nature in the area of nuclear energy are. We do that the matters of democracy should not be a part of the document. Industry fodder for very lively. It's probably often a fact that these discussions, these disputes, do not use stalled systems and devices. And the goal of this testing is to verify that this third unit and its installations are working in line with the specification. On the fourth unit, we are a little less advanced, but originally, these two units should have been finished a long time ago. We are now assuming that the third unit will be started up at the latest by October 2018, and the fourth unit should be commissioned in November 2019. And I just remind you that the management of the project is the responsibility of one of the co-owners of Slovenské elektrárne, the company, the Italian company Enel. But I have to openly say, as Prime Minister, that very often schedules are not kept, and milestones of the construction and commissioning are moved to a later date. And there are a number of problems which arose during the construction, and even this time this makes us doubt that the deadline of November this year for the commissioning for the third unit, whether that is a realistic date. In any case, it is clear that there must be no compromises regarding nuclear safety, physical protection, and readiness for any accidents. And from this point, from this place, I would like to tell my colleagues if they are here, from SE and from NL, that in the coming days, together with the Minister of Economy and other members of the European Nuclear Supervisory Authority, we will visit Mochovce, and I will want to hear explanations from those who are responsible as to why there are these delays and when the third unit will actually be commissioned. And the negotiations, well, I can tell you right now, the negotiations will be very hard, because I do not intend certain to get that installation back forward.
Sooner, the Minister of Energy years to make his one.
sense of nostalgia being here because it reminds me of period some 10 years ago when the then Minister of Economy, Mr. Jahňátek, we were those who were inspired by the idea of organizing energy forums like this one. And I think it's great to have this rotating principle between Bratislava and Prague for this kind of forum, where not only professionals, experts, and activists from various walks of life can share and exchange their opinions on nuclear. I would like to apologize our Prime Minister Babiš for not being able to attend this forum due to other official program, but I would like to assure you that what I'm going to tell you is shared by our Prime Minister. The leading representatives of the European Union, the European Commission, accepted this invitation to the forum, which clearly shows that nuclear energy is still up and running, live and kicking, so there is a future for this industry. And I believe that we are going to use all bridges between our countries, member states, in order to develop energy, including nuclear energy. And if this happens, I think we can come to very pragmatic outcomes. Speaking about the Czech Republic's national policy and other national policies, still these policies and European policies are drafted many years in advance. Politicians and technicians refer to 30-year cycle. Obviously, this period is going to be accelerated. In the meantime, we have to realize that nuclear plays a role in this region of Europe, not only in the Czech Republic and Slovakia, but also elsewhere, where until recently it is still used. Because we can say that this is low-carbon energy, and if we don't use carbon for the production of this installation, this is a zero-emission, zero-carbon source. In the Czech Republic and Slovakia, the development of nuclear is widely supported by public. That's an important fact that needs to be mentioned here. Otherwise, this type of energy could not be developed in this region. Why we believe that support to nuclear energy development is so important. First of all, we need to say that the European Union, including Slovakia and the Czech Republic, committed themselves to fight climate change as it was enshrined in the Paris Agreement and ensuing legislation. We can say that so far 170 countries around the world, not only from the European Union, have ratified the Paris Accord in order to stop increasing global temperatures. The topic of climate change may be downplayed by some or exaggerated by others. I tend to be pragmatic. Despite all that, I would like to say that I believe that not only today, but developments at least 30 days in advance changes nuclear mix. On the one hand of EU members, this part of and for 33% of total energy consumption in the Czech Republic, and we would like to increase it up to 55%. So this cannot be achieved without having this shared of this energy mix. Otherwise, we would have to replace it with something else. Bitumen, black coal were traditional fossil fuels used in the Czech Republic, and with depleting resources, I think we have to realize that we need to use greatly use nuclear and gas. I welcome the use of gas. I believe that gas is a noble fuel that should be used in a noble manner and in a flexible manner. taking into consideration the applicable regulations and municipal thermal power plants using coal, which is not an environmentally friendly fuel. Speaking about the overall energy policy, here I would like to say that the Czech Republic and its leading representatives, including our government and ministers, realize that all EU member states have decided to address climate change and energy through the use of nuclear. But we have to respect the decisions taken by each and every member state, and we have to respect individual decisions. As I'm pressed for time, I would like to touch upon the program or the agenda of our forum. The issue of safety or topic of safety is one of the most important ones. Are here in terms of efficiency. I have seen calculations in favor of a higher output, 1,000 to 2,000 megawatts, because investment is quite significant, and it is better to have a larger capacity installations. But we have to take into consideration the opinion and the approach of general public. But I still believe that these modular reactors are a way forward. Like the Prime Minister, I would like to wish us a fruitful, forward-looking discussion in our field. Thank you very much for your attention, and I am looking forward to our forum and discussions.
Thank you, Minister. I would like now to give the floor to Vice President Šefčovič, who will, there's been so many issues raised from the Prime Minister to the Commission, and I think we have a full agenda.
Excellency, chcel veľmi pekne poďakovať pánovi premiérovi.
First of all, I would like to give thanks to the Prime Minister Pellegrini and the Czech minister, because with their presence, they are improving the political significance of this event. And of course, I'm very pleased that I can be here on behalf of the Commission here in my hometown, and that I can open this 13th edition of the ANF Forum. I would like to thank to my Slovak colleagues who made a lot of effort to prepare this event very well. And as you well know, the European Nuclear Forum has become a forum which stimulates discussion on challenges and opportunities in the field of energy, especially in the field of nuclear energy. In the past years, we've strengthened the presence on this forum since we've made contact with several non-governmental organizations. We've tried many new formats to improve interaction and participation. And thanks to these new formats, everyone can take part in this event. Issues relating to energy and nuclear energy have to do with every single citizen. One of the examples where we can really see this very well is a project that I'm responsible for within the European Commission, and that's the Energy Union. And as has been mentioned, we are a global player and a pioneer on the field of nuclear energy, because we are a global leader in the field of technologies, and thanks to our modern legal framework, which is responsible for the safety and the back end of nuclear fuel, as well as nuclear waste management. As you know, the European Union produces more than half of its energy from low-carbon resources, and more than 25% comes from nuclear energy. And in the European Commission program called PINK, the PINK program, which was published last year, we expect that between today and 2050, nuclear energy production will be developed in a way where in 2050 about 20% of energy will still come from nuclear energy. And in the case of those countries which plan to use nuclear energy within their energy mix, this source will play an important part in not only energy production, but in also providing energy safety in
V stratégii energetickej únie
The strategies of the European Union and our energy safety strategy indicates that nuclear energy is a safe, low-carbon source of energy. For nuclear energy to meet our framework goals up to 2030 must be coupled with the highest level of standards when it comes to management, disposal, prevention of nuclear weapons and other related areas. This will require very close cooperation between the involved partners. Recently, important steps have been taken in order to improve nuclear safety. After the leading representatives deciding that in the years 2011-2012, all nuclear power plants had to be tested through a comprehensive test, so-called stress tests, as well as peer review exercises. Many of the improvements indicated in national action plans have been already successfully implemented. What we need to ensure is that all the remaining actions need to be taken as a priority under the supervision of national authorities. On the basis of results of stress tests and the accident information, we decided to amend the Nuclear Safety Directive, which was adopted in July 2014, and the Commission is now reviewing how it has been transposed into EU member states' national legal systems. With the peer review, the director also introduced a highest standard of safety in member states as well as in the EU as a whole. This instrument allows us to put together knowledge, information sharing, and the exchange of best practices. Thanks to interested parties and general public, this has become a fully transparent process involving public consultation processes. The first partner review, peer review is underway, and it is to be finalized in the months to come. The purpose of this was to review the management of aging programs in order to check the age profile of nuclear power plants in the EU, taking into consideration potentially longer operation of some of them. I must say that this process has been extremely inclusive. 19 member states participated in the process, not only those that have been operating the nuclear power plants, but also those that have scientific reactors. More than 140 experts participated at a specialized workshop that served as an important platform for the meeting of regulators in this field, and it took place in Luxembourg. Unfortunately, the workshop was not well attended by the NGO sector, because this broad consultation was only attended by 20 representatives of the NGO sector. The results of this workshop will be discussed at the level of the Party of European Regulators for Nuclear Safety in July this year. And I believe that this, after this discussion, we will be able to offer general public the latest and best practices and procedures to be followed in order to improve all the work done in this sector, which is extremely sensitive. Obviously, it will be very important that the next step in this process must be the involvement of national regulators who have to draft national plans to address shortcomings or bottlenecks identified in this process and taking lesson from other member states where such handled. I'd like to continue issue topic, and that is the prevention of nuclear proliferation. Also part of the Brexit negotiations with the same goal. Cooperation with the International Atomic Energy Agency is excellent. Both parties at the high-level meeting in Vienna 2018 confirmed that. But we must not rest on the laurels. That's why the European Commission is going to be proactive in order to adjust its plan for safety guarantees, taking into consideration the future political needs. Of course, I have to touch upon the sensitive issue of Iran sanctions and the nuclear deal. As you know, Europe intends to continue implementing this deal agreement signed with Iran, which was fully endorsed by the UN Security Council in its resolution 2020-31. The European Union, as well as our partners, except the U.S., consider this deal very crucial for the purpose of safety and non-proliferation of nuclear weapons in the region. For that reason, and taking into consideration the EAIA's assessment saying that Iran complies with all the commitments under this agreement, we will continue with implementing this agreement. The European Commission 2 weeks ago adopted a comprehensive package of measures in the field of EU-Iran cooperation that it is to be introduced and implemented. Speaking of these crucially important topics, we have to underline how important it is to reduce our potential technology and energy dependence on other partners. For that reason, it is in our interest to maintain and strengthen our leadership in the field of nuclear technology, including the development of or production of energy by means of nuclear fission, for which we are preparing ourselves in the field of ITER. This should help the EU export its safety standards within the frame of the most stringent framework that has been introduced recently. In order to maintain our leadership and international global status, we need to ensure to have proper experts and expertise at right places, not only today, but also in the future. Maintaining the sufficient number of experts and professional staff is of a key importance. I'm very happy that this is one of the topics that is going to be discussed tomorrow. We need our most competent and skilled nuclear engineers to take care of our nuclear power plants. Studies indicate that in 10 years we may run a risk of losing many nuclear engineers. There is a lower interest of young people in studying technical or STEM sciences. So it will be very difficult to replace even the aging workforce in all areas, ranging from maintenance, operation, and research. We need to consider what needs to be done in order to reverse this trend and ensure the highest possible nuclear waste. This may take longer than expected. Our experts must be able to use and apply the latest applications of and cutting-edge applications of nuclear science and technology in the field of electricity generation, as well as nuclear medicine, industrial, agricultural, space applications. Many people do not realize that many countries, not only those that use nuclear, use radioactive sources in non-power applications. That's why they need highly skilled workers able to handle radioactive material in the safest possible way, and that needs to be maintained in the long run. What also be needed is sufficient investment projects in order to comply with the energy strategy of the EU. Investments into the nuclear sector will be a part of this effort. And this brings me to the second topic that will be discussed tomorrow, and these are low-efficient methods of energy production and licensing in the European Union. There has been significant interest in small modular reactors, SMRs, in the recent years. It is because of the fact that new nuclear projects have been slowed down with enormous budgets, and it has been underlined by the Prime Minister of Slovakia in his speech as well. The share of nuclear in the mix is on the rise. The need of electricity in remote areas also is taken into consideration. That's why we need to consider the highest possible safety level of this technology. One of the essential features of these smaller reactors is modularity and integrated and small power output, which is usually below 300 megawatts per unit, which means that such a module can be manufactured in a separate factory, transported to a location by road or by rail as a single block with reduced construction time. Simpler design and higher reliability could result in improved safety. These smaller units can also be used for electricity generation and other purposes as well. For example, heat load for cogeneration or for district heating. Encouraging vendors and suppliers to engage in an initiative to standardize to a higher degree of their components. This could stimulate a more competitive supply chain, ensuring higher comparability with transparent and higher safety standards. One of the advantages of such modular reactors could be obviously their scalability, which means many different variations in their design would limit the advantage of cost efficiency in their production. By ensuring better cooperation with regard to licensing requirements, technologies considered and approved safe in one country would not need to undergo the same process in other countries. That would ensure the exchange of best practices much faster. And the final word, obviously, when we are talking about safety, need to remain with strong and independent regulatory authorities. These and many other elements and attention.
President, opening session is live streamed, as it will be the whole conference tomorrow, and it's live streamed in 3 languages. And the opportunities are there to have interactive debates on the different topics. I know that there will be different views and to introduce forward-looking and backward-looking topics in NF over the years. So last but not least, I will call on stage then the Member of Parliament of the European Parliament, the Vice Chair of the Committee on Industry, Energy and Research, Mr. Jaromír Kohliček, who will represent for this opening session the civil society, and we have many representatives in lively debates tomorrow as well. So, Mr. Kohliček, thank you.
Thank you very much. Well, já budu tedy mluvit česky, pokud vám to nebude vadit.
So if I speak in English,
Kdyby byl nějaký problém,
or if there is a problem, just let me
Chtěl
know.
bych poděkovat našim slovenským
First of all, I would
hostitelům,
like to thank our Slovak hosts for giving us a commissioner who actually really actively participates in the energy issues. If you went to the European Parliament, you would appreciate how important it is to have a commissioner who is really well informed about his field, but he's also capable of actually discussing and accepting the opinion of someone else. So once again, I would like to give thanks to my Slovak friends for giving us a commissioner like that for this field of ours. I myself have worked in this field for many, many years, so for me, all these political proclamations are a bit of a problem for me, whether on behalf of my colleagues from the European Parliament or from national parliaments. There is one typical problem when people say that a nuclear reactor is a nuclear bomb waiting to go off. A week ago, I became one of the directors of the Energy Forum, and I hope this will enable me to participate more actively on all these discussions, which are very important because on the one hand, we have the obligations of the state, the obligation to provide for all energy demands of their citizens, industry, transportation, and so on. And on the other hand, we have this effort to unify all these things on a single basis. And obviously, on the one hand, we have unreliable resources, insufficient transmission network, such as, for example, in the case of Germany, which is a typical example. And on the other hand, we have a stable, let's say, stable production, which is the case of Slovakia or the Czech Republic. So we need to be very careful when we try to unify certain supervision bodies and bodies which are supposed to manage high voltage networks or some other parts. You can disagree with me, obviously, but I would call them pseudo-green, pseudo-environmental. And it's a pity that people don't really have any actual knowledge about these things. Bulgaria is a typical example. When they were accessing in the EU, they were made to decommission 2 of their units. This led to a huge problem in energy safety, and this was the pseudo-environmental lobby which made them to stop certain projects. And it's our obligation to help some of these states, because once again, I want to underline, as much as we try to transfer certain obligations to the European Commission, in the end, citizens know that it's the state, it's the national state, which is responsible for providing them with electric energy for supply and for all the facilities and technologies which provide these supplies. Obviously, technologies should be neutral. A technologically neutral equipment is demanded by the Paris Agreement as well, and we need it in the years to come. And a better use to achieve a higher level of rank decision maker, and EU is always in the making sure that their citizens have reliable supplies, and at the same time, the safety of the citizens and neighboring states should not be should not be put to risk. Aging, there is a problem of an aging generation from the field of nuclear energy and all the related fields, and it's important to give a practically show our prospective future workers what kind of perspective there is in these fields. There are thousands of people from social and legal fields. We have thousands of experts in many other fields, and these will not provide safety of supplies because the EU has always stood in the forefront of technological development, and this is provided by experts and knowledgeable people. The discussion in the Czech Republic on the topic of whether it is or it isn't necessary to have A-levels in maths, this is something horrible. Really, I do not wish upon anyone to have such a discussion. Now, on to new concepts of reactors.
Recently, we've started hearing about old systems or old types of reactors renewed, whether they're on basis of vapor, water, gaseous coolant. And I believe that this renewed interest in the old principles is an area where we can achieve real progress in the science or research of reactors. Of course, there is the question of energy security of a country, and I would like to reiterate this. There may be sun, but when it gets covered by the cloud, especially our pseudo-green colleagues should know what it looks like. I have solar collectors on my roof, so I know exactly what happens when a cloud covers the sun and my PV panel just refuses to provide any power at all. And this is what happens 80% of the time. And then, my dear German colleagues, we need to transfer this intermittently available energy. We must ensure that we don't have to build additional transfer stations on the borders with Poland and the Czech Republic, because we're building new borders. We're dividing the EU once again. As for energies or energy as such, we're not talking about electricity only, but about heat too. And Mr. Šefčovič mentioned this quite rightly. Certain reactor concepts show that it would be quite favorable to not only join two the sources into cogeneration, but especially in the winter to use the heat which is produced in a reactor. So that's one side of the coin. Another side of the coin is that we are dealing with an area which connects many areas, and together these different areas of expertise in this time allows us to be quite safe with our nuclear installations. I was talking about the Carnot cycle. We have other power plants using the heat from coal or oil sometimes, or gas, to drive the turbines, to drive the generators to produce electricity, and so to check instead of a blast of all, spread these benefits more widely. Once again, the European Commission specifies that you have to have a storage of 3 months worth of your consumption of gas. Well, what about sun or wind, renewable resources? In the Czech Republic, about 20% of total electricity demand can be covered by these renewable resources. But if we go further on, we have like 8,000 small water power plants, but then there is a problem with the environment, because you have to modify the stream, you have to change quite a lot of the nature around a little hydropower plant. But we cannot realistically exceed those 20% from these natural renewable resources. So unless we want to be dependent on imported gas or coal, as in the case of Germany, then I have to say no, thank you. That's why myself, I am for a continued development of nuclear energy. There are other possibilities of using radiation, of, for example, other isotopes. Technetium is another such possible isotope to be used in energy generation. It is currently being used in medicine. When this particular isotope is used in kidney diagnosis. And we have, well, in particular, these isotopes are injected in the body and irradiate from the inside cancer cells, that is, the treatment side, apart from the diagnostic side. In case of cancer treatment, it is very important to set the dosage right. But these are new sources for innovative developments in nuclear reactors. We were talking about the types of reactors, and the detractors say the volume of the waste produced in nuclear power plants is huge. Well, yeah, but at the same time, it could be excellent fuel for the next generation of reactors, which are being tested at the moment. And I hope that in a relatively brief time we will reach commercially viable use of this, what we now call waste. And when that time comes, the reactors will be 3 times as efficient as the current generation. Then we have things like the construction of containments, and safety experts will tell you that the Greens, who do not know all those technical details, do not know that this technology is actually the most favorable or the most advantageous way of solving any possible future conflicts. And as for nuclear weapons, all those of possibly you who connect the area of nuclear energy generation and nuclear weapons, please do realize that depleted uranium, which is used in warheads, that is some really, really bad stuff, which evaporates as the warhead hits the target and is spread all around and remains in the environment for a long time. Because and this is an area that we should tackle: non-proliferation of this really, really bad stuff that should not have a place in the arsenals of our armies. And once again, as the Commissioner said, there is the ITER research project. I'm really looking forward to the results of this project, the tokamak. I think this is the future because, this is a project that the sun has been shining on for billions of years, and I'm sure that we can copy what it is doing. Thank you very much for your attention, ladies and gentlemen.
Thank you very much. Thank you to all the speakers. I think we had enough, let's say, strong statements, and I'm sure we will have a strong debate tomorrow coming on, and I expect also to have reactions over Twitter and over the social media. So I think with the closing remarks of the Member of the Parliament, we will close this session. We will have some discussion with the press outside, and I'm pleased to announce that all the speakers for tonight have been confirmed. So tonight we will deviate a bit from the 2 core subjects of the conference tomorrow, and we will talk about nuclear medicine and the role of the importance of nuclear medicine. So thank you very much all for the opening session. Thank you very much to the speakers that we had today, and looking forward to the discussion tomorrow. Thank you.